Today, June 1st, 2026, a Columbia jury just found Rick Chow not guilty of murder in the death of a 14-year-old black kid named Cyrus Carmack-Belton. This is a case that's already dividing opinions everywhere on social media and everywhere around the world. Now, before anything else, this is about the loss of a young kid. That alone makes this serious. That alone makes this a sensitive topic, no matter where you stand in the situation. Now, I didn't pick this topic to pick a side or stir emotions. I just want to break down the verdict. I just want to actually see what that means and how a jury can reach this kind of verdict. I mean, at the end of the day, two families are living with consequences that can't be undone. And that right there makes this worth talking about. Let's have a conversation.
12 years, 85%. I did it. I stood on it. The thing about the streets is you can be caught up at the wrong place at the wrong time. I still got partners out there. You can't expect everybody to see things the way you see it when everybody didn't go through what you went through.
Real topics, real stories, real events. Here's my real output.
All right, welcome back. This is episode number 20 of Real Talk with Illa Gezey. Today, like I said, we will be discussing this case where Rick Chow was found not guilty on the charge of murder in Columbia, South Carolina. A jury of 12 found him not guilty today. And I just want to give a little bit of my opinion on what I think took place, what I think led to this, and what we can do as a community different. So let's take a little bit about the facts. Rick Chow was found not guilty of murder by a Richland County jury today, June 1st, 2026. The case involved the 2023 shooting death of 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack-Belton outside of Chow's convenience store in Columbia, South Carolina. Prosecutors argued Chow chased and shot the teenager in the back after wrongfully suspecting him of stealing water. The defense argued Chow believed his son was in danger after the teen allegedly pointed a firearm. All right. Before I give my opinion, I just want y'all to remember something. A 14-year-old lost their life. They can't get that back. So regardless of what you think about this case, regardless of how you feel about this case, this is a tragedy. A young kid didn't get to see his 15th birthday. And that's sad. Alone right there, that is sad. But these are the facts in the case. So now, let's talk a little bit about why the jury may have acquitted him of murder. I'm going to give y'all my raw opinion. I did not watch this full trial. I didn't. I was tuned into what was going on as far as the highlights. When I had free time, I would tap in to see and listen what was going on. What were the key points? What were the key factors? Because I had already heard about this case. I already knew about what took place, but I didn't know what their defense was going to be. So all in all, the defense was he thought his son was in danger. All right. So with that being said, why would the jury have acquitted him? Is it because they believe his son was in danger? Is it because they believe Cyrus allegedly pulled the firearm out and pointed at Chow's son? There's a couple things that I feel about this. Number one, a jury doesn't have to completely believe Chow is innocent. Clearly, a person lost their life. That ain't no secret to that. A person lost their life. A kid lost their life. A black kid. It's not okay. But like I said, a jury doesn't have to fully believe a person is innocent. All they had needed was a little bit of reasonable doubt. In this particular case, I believe the reasonable doubt was mainly because it was a murder charge. Where was the malice? Where was the intent? You know, a couple things they said. So this is what stuck out to me. I saw a nurse a nurse's aide, something. She saw she saw the scene where where Cyrus was bleeding. He was bleeding out. I think that's what she said she saw. She stated on the stand that she stopped, pulled over, and asked if they needed help. She started doing his recitation on his chest. And she said that Rick Chow was given mouth to mouth while Cyrus was vomiting. He was sucking up the vomit and spitting it out, giving him mouth to mouth, sucking up the vomit, spitting him out. Now, when I saw that, it was two things that came across my mind. Is she telling the truth? And if so, why would he do something like that? So my cousin said that's when his guilt kicked in. And I could see it like that. I could see it like that. He knew at that point he messed up and he was trying to correct it. I've heard this guy was racist. I don't have the proof on that, but a lot of people in that neighborhood say that guy has always been racist. I don't know that to be a fact. That's alleged. I don't know the facts on that, but the facts on this is the jurors believe there was some type of difficulty with the murder conviction. And I knew that once I heard them ask for the definitions of malice and murder. When they came back and asked for those definitions, that let me know right then and there. So manslaughter wasn't on the table. That's where they messed up at. If you didn't want to charge him with manslaughter, at least put it on the table. At least give the jury that option. But it was all or nothing. So they basically put all of their chips in and went all in on the murder charge. It looked like, from one perspective, it looked like an open shut case. But when you really think about it, was it? Now, the part I believe was tragic and the part I believe should not have happened at all, and it would have prevented all this, was chasing after the boy. If he stole a bottle of water from you or a candy, it could have been a soda or a candy bar. Chasing him down is crazy. I just don't agree with that. That's wild. I don't see, why you would have to feel like you want to chase a person down for stealing. All you got to do is call the police. Let them handle it, Anyways, these are my personal thoughts, man. Accountability. Somebody has to take accountability to this, because two things can be true at the same time. A family lost a son, and a jury still found the evidence was not enough for murder. I felt the evidence was enough for manslaughter. Now, you have involuntary manslaughter, which means you didn't mean to do it. And you got voluntary manslaughter, which means I did it, but I didn't mean to, maliciously take this person, unalive this person. So those are the angles to look at that when it comes down to the manslaughter part. This is tragic, man, because Cyrus was 14. Rick Chow's family still has lived under a cloud for these past 3 years. And one confrontation changed everything. This is a tragic situation. I don't think no verdict really could fix this, but I'm sure the family is upset with a not guilty verdict. But who should they be upset with? Should they be upset at the state, or should just they leave all their blame on Rick Chow? Either or, I get it, because it's emotions. A lot of emotions are tied to the situation. But when we deal with emotions, you got to know emotions versus the law. The law don't move off emotions. The law moves off law. A lot of times people think a verdict tells us whether something was right or wrong, man. And sometimes it only tells us that the jury believed who could really be proven guilty or not guilty. So it's not always about right or wrong. It's about what the jury believed. It's about who presented the best evidence. And in a sense, it's like a basketball game. Who came out there with their A game? Who came out there ready to win? And who put on the best show for the jury? In this situation, I believe he could have been charged with manslaughter, and I think the state messed that up. The bigger conversation with this is fear and split decisions. That's one thing. Fear and split decisions. When you reacting out of fear, sometimes you make a quick split decision and you're not thinking. So that was what happened when they allegedly thought Cyrus was stealing water. They made a quick split decision to run after him, and everything else transpired because of that. I heard the defense saying things like, you wouldn't have known he had a gun if he didn't try to steal water from you or something like that. And I heard the state say, you wouldn't have known he had a gun if you didn't run after him, right? And the son said, yes, right. So that was something that the jury could see on both sides. But when it boils down to malice, it's not like he stood over Cyrus and gave him like 10 more, that would have been malice. So I believe since it didn't happen like that, they should have at least had manslaughter on the table. And I think that's where they went wrong as far as the state goes. Now, another part of the bigger conversation is firearms and responsibility. We, or those who have firearms, have to be responsible. You have to know when to shoot, when not to shoot, when you feel like there's a threat, when there isn't a threat. This isn't a video game. These are real lives. These are real people. Real results happen. Real deaths, real funerals, real tears. So when you're playing with real bullets, you have to make sure you make the right choices and decisions. That goes back to the split decisions and reacting out of fear. You can't react out of fear and just go letting off. No. Be smart about it, especially when you're an owner of a firearm. Number 3, with this part of the conversation, citizens chasing suspected shoplifters. I've already said I do not think you should chase no person stealing out the store. That is not your duty. You should call the police and let them handle it. I don't care if you're the store owner. You got to take that loss. If they had pulled out a gun and robbed you for the cash register, you would have took that loss. So what's the difference? You know what I'm saying? It's just because you had the ups on them. Like, nah. Go to the police like you're supposed to. You know what I mean? This also is an example on how quickly situations can escalate. This right here went from one thing all the way to a murder. This went from shoplifting to a murder. Shoplifting to someone losing their life is crazy. I don't care what color, race, skin tone, where you from, how old you are. Shoplifting to losing your life is crazy. Now, another thing community should want to talk about is whether people should let police handle certain situations. Because everybody's always against the police. Everybody's always against calling the police. I talked to a brother today. He was like, man, I'm a civilian. He was like in certain situations, he don't care what nobody say. He's calling the police. And I get it. Because you can't just go off of what everybody else doing and thinking. You got to go off your own mind, man. And clearly in this situation, Rick Chow went off his own mind and it didn't go right because he should have went to the police. He should have called the police. You think this man was stealing? Y'all got cameras. What you chasing him for? You chasing him to get your bottle of water back if he stole a bottle of water? But he didn't steal a bottle of water. You thought he did. And basically you chased him down for what? And that's the issue that a lot of people have, along with the fact that you whipped out the firearm. There's no cameras on where he whipped it out at. He just know he was shot in the back by the autopsy and the experts and stuff like that. Tragic situation, man. I'm so sorry for the loss of Cyrus, and I'm sorry for his parents, his family, his friends, his loved ones, his classmates, all of that, man. This is a kid. It's a kid. I don't even know if he was in high school yet. You know what I mean? It's a kid, man. So whether you agree with the verdict or not, this case should remain something that all of us can relate to on how fast life can change in the snap of a finger, man. You never know how the other person's thinking. When you're doing anything, you never know how the other person is thinking. You never know if this person may be having a bad day. You never know if this person is strapped or not. I don't know what Cyrus may have been thinking. That's a whole nother thing. You know what I'm saying? I wish he could have survived this, man. I really do. This is terrible that he couldn't survive this. But now this lets you see one accusation leads to one chase, leads to one shot. And guess what happens? Multiple families are affected. Multiple families are affected forever. And that's the real lesson I'm taking away from this Rick Chow case. I've heard people talk about better parenting. I've heard people talking about how a 14-year-old gets a gun. That's a topic within itself. I've heard people say Rick Chow was allegedly racist. I've heard people say the chase down should have never happened and all kind of stuff. You know, in any situation, you can't tell nobody how to feel. Everybody's going to have their own feelings. Everybody's going to have their own thoughts. Everybody's going to have their own opinions. This is a delicate situation. I don't want to pick a side. I hate to pick a side in this. I just want there to be a real lesson behind this. Let's think before we act. And that's the lesson on both ends of this. Let's think before we act. This has been another episode of Real Talk with Illa Gezey. This was episode number 20. My opinion on the Rick Chow not guilty verdict. So I gave my thoughts. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. If you agree with any of my thoughts, drop your comments down below. And yeah, I can't wait to see y'all next time. Peace.